And I might begin by saying that I'm Elizabeth Ellen Ann Parks Grin. Now that sounds like a lot, but that's what I am. So with the having, you didn't ask me about my birthday, and this is something that I'd like to tell you that's showing about me, and many people might wonder, why did she do that? Well, I've never been too hot on how old are you, since we already know how old we are. I'm a few months older than you, so that's good enough for me right there, right? A few months? Okay. Elizabeth Ellen Ann Parks Grinton was born in Wilkes County, and I'm the 5th generation down from the slave who was Mammy Judy. So with that, my mother was Josephine Parks Speaks, and she was the great-granddaughter of Judith, and I'm the 5th generation, I told you down from that. And before I tell too much about that, I'm sure that you want to say who you are before I take up the whole scene and the time, because I'm known to talk a lot.
So am I.
Well, good. Get started.
Well, I am Catherine Harris Barber, born of Mary O.B. Harris and Joseph C. Harris, September the 23rd, 1916. And that is the year that Miss Grinton was born, except she was born in May.
Now this is something. They've been waiting a long time to find out, and now they have it.
Now everybody knows.
This is something. Now if you know, really, if I'd known you were going to tell all that, I told him myself. Now here she is saying, well, anyway, that's what you have in your mind. Okay.
Now about your...
I'm the 6th generation of Harrises in Wilkes County. I'm a descendant of Molly Harris, who migrated here by covered wagon from Culpeper, Virginia, sometime around 1800 or after that, because her grandson, who was my great-grandfather, was born in 1820. Now, his name was Jordan Harris. I never did see him. He fell in the fire and was burned on the day that I was a month old. And Mama was taking me down there for him to see, and met one of his grandchildren coming to tell her that he had fallen in the fire and burned up.
Well, I had a brother that worked there out in the coal field, and they were needing help when I was 18 years old to work, and he'd come in here and get men, we'd write a pass. You know, the company would pay the fare to the railroad company. And that's the way I got to the coal field at first. Well, when I first started work there, it was $3.60. And then later, the second time I went back, it's $4.
Now that's a day or an hour?
A day.
Was it dusty back in there?
Lord, yeah.
Had it looked like you'd have died from the coal dust?
Well,
I guess that's where black lung comes in.
that's where black lung come in. You see men come out there, you couldn't tell him whether he's a black man or white man or not, only just by his hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never thought about that.
That's right.
That was a pretty incredible experience. It's 1 week, and it goes by really fast, and it's very intense. And I think, you know, of course, there's a lot of pressure. I think because that was a year where there were more black contestants than there had ever been before, there was maybe a lot of pressure on the 4 black women in the pageant, and that included myself and Suzette Charles, Miss New Jersey, of course Vanessa Williams, Miss New York, and Amy Keys, Miss Maryland, because we were always pushed together, you know, in the press room, and it was like, oh, where's Miss North Carolina, Miss New Jersey, and it's like, okay, Miss New York and Miss Maryland. But then again, in a way, I mean, that can be an advantage or a disadvantage, but in a way, it was kind of nice because, you know, you get a lot of attention that way also. Of course, when you're the first at anything, you always get a lot of attention.
Your family made your own soap?
Yeah, they could, we burnt, they could run lie down. They used to make harmony too, but I wasn't in on that. But they could take hickory wood, we burned that, and save those ashes and put them in a hopper, and put some straw there, and you pour water over that ashes, and it'd drain down through that straw, and had a little trophy to run out, and they'd catch it in a pot. They'd take that lye, they called it, and they could boil it, put soap grease, I put soap scraps, stuff in it, and boil it and make soap.
Oh, meat scraps and things like that. And
yeah. Then you could get this, we called it the Red Devil Lye.
Yeah.
You know, and put it in there after that, you know. I've known them to make it out of that. It wouldn't be plumb hard out of that lye, but when you got the Red Devil Lye, you can make just about a hard cake out of that.
y'all are the last people I know of that's got an oxen that you work, a steer.
Oh, yeah. No,
They hard to see anymore, aren't they?
yeah, I don't know what to see other than working. That's the truth.
Now, you helped train this one that y'all got now, didn't you? Or you did train?
No, but most of it, that boy done most of it.
Uh-huh. You showed him how, though, didn't you?
Yeah, but he got a little added because he was a little fellow and his oldest brother. Now, his oldest brother at that time, why, he used them. Why, he'd haul across to town, wood to Cairo, and he just used them like tame the horses. That's all. Yeah, but finally, after my brothers married out, they about all got quit making them. And
But this steer now, your son still uses it to
he uses it.
farm with and everything, don't he?
he can, but outside of that steer there, I wouldn't know where to go to find another.
You're looking at a masterpiece. This is it. This masterpiece sets on legs, and it has a top which is about 6 pounds heavy, and deep inside space, and it's oak. Unfastened here is a button that's like a stopper, wooden or a whatever you call that cork, and the milk ran out that hole. Then you dashed and dashed water and dashed water until it ran clear and clean, and the churn was ready for the next milk. You know, putting in your clabber milk. This is an iron that was used especially by slaves to iron the ruffles around the master's white shirt that he wore. This was something that was an ordinary thing to wear every day.
Turn it slowly. Now then. All the way around. Come right on around. It's narrow, isn't it?
It's pointed. That's very pointed in order to go up into those ruffles.
Okay.
And here is the amazing part, not amazing really, but the unique part. That's the part that went in the fire. This weighted, and when you would drag it out, again you would snap into place.
Oh, in other words, that handle could be used with 2 or 3 of these irons, couldn't it?
Yes, if you had some more.
And while one is getting back hot again, you could be ironing with another one.
That iron is in excellent shape. This is a rare piece, very heavy. That's a maul. This was used with a handle in here and did the driving. A piece of wood, a wedge, into a log once you start it, and then you'd put the wedge and then you would pound it with this thing like that, you know, with this handle back here, and burst that log. Those might have been done that way, this log house. This belongs to my stepfather, Harrison Speaks, the one that I told you about, the tiny shoe belonging to him. Well, this was his lass. I don't know whether you spell it L-A-S-T, but it is a shoe lass.
What the cobblers used to make the shoes or help form the shoes, wasn't it? And
Yeah.
work on like
But I want to know how to spell that word.
I wouldn't either.
All right? Anyway, it had different sizes. If you're working for a child's shoe, that one. And
That went right up on top of that little
right up
pedestal.
there, where that one
Right.
fit. That's a grown person's shoe.
Okay.
And it was nailed down on a log that could be held very strongly. And he sat on a bench, which was known as the cobbler's bench. And that bench was his working place. And beside him was a box of tools and nails. And that Harrison thought very much of. That was his name, Harrison Speaks. This pot has been used in my family for generations. I'm not too sure that it doesn't go to my great-grandmother, not my grandmother, my great-grandmother, because my grandmother had it, excuse me, then my mother, and then my aunt, and then I got it. Now here is the three-legged, it's like a Dutch oven. And now it takes very little time to cook a meal, but because of these legs, you in that space, say, if you wanted to cook right there, and you,
Right. Cook
Now,
right out there on the hearth.
you cook it on the hearth, yes you did. Or closer in, the more or faster you wanted to cook, you push him in. And the coals are now on the top of this fella, so you're getting a browning from the top and cooking underneath, so you had formed what is known as the same stove.
Okay.
Well, the main part here, or interesting thing to me, was the bread was so good, and the cake. They made pound cakes in that fella. But you had to time it just right, and because of you doing it every day, see, there was no stove, no electricity, so you simply cooked with the heat that was made from hickory wood. It gave the food a different taste. Did you ever hear of the threshers who came to thresh?
Yeah.
Well, they used to cook 2 and 3 pots of food in these things, and it was so strange that they cooked those beans early that morning and put the potatoes on about 11 o'clock on top of the beans, and the meat was already down in there done, and stirred those things up, and that was the best food. Oh! The games were the kind that gathered the people around the piles of corn shucking. That was a great event. And help went from one section to the other. Now this happened a great deal after '65, you know, when the struggle was so great for those who had been set free. And the corn shucking was a time of great feasting, and they had the brown jugs hidden in the corn, and of course the children played over here, and they shucked corn. They were supposed to be shucking until the wee hours.